Okay, hello. It's been a while. Um, I was just watching a James Tour video. He just recently uploaded a video. I highly recommend it. I have the link in the description. He's addressing young people that want to go into the field of science, the fields of science. Redefine living. How you doing? And so he's encouraging them to walk with the Lord, and they're excited. He's excited. Of course, he attributes all his success to the power of God, the power of the Holy Spirit who enlightens him. Hello, Jeremy Martin. How you doing? And he's totally unashamed. And you might think that James Tour, hello, Honesty Angel, you might think that James Tour um, gained his success and then became a Christian. But no, he became a Christian at about 18 years old and lived his whole entire life following the Lord and seeking the Lord and having Bible studies and witnessing and having all the success that he's had. So with that, I guess I'll just go ahead and get started with my little video here. It's been a while. I wanted to focus more on the mitochondrial maternal lines a little bit, and but I'll just probably review as well the I'll review the some of the paternal lines too, just to begin with, just to refresh and some of the new things that I've been able to observe, or the newer things. Okay, so let's let's get started here. Let's go ahead and do this, and let me see. I guess I'll start here, right? Oh, this is a good one. So we have here, this is the Y chromosome chart. It's a very, very interesting chart. Everybody should study as much as possible. And I like to start out with these three here. These three here represent the sons of Ham. There's another one which would be Canaan. Ham had another son named Canaan. I believe he would be the E3M123, which is in this area here. So there's another one of these. It's called the E3M123 in this area. And of course, I try to have most of this memorized. The Berbers are the E3M81s. I believe they're descendants of Put. The Egyptians are V12 or E3V12. That would be Mitzrayim. Now, of course, this is not everybody in the population, and it's not everybody in North Africa that's an M81. This is just giving you a general idea of where a large percentage of the population has these haplogroups here. And of course, the descendants of Cush, which the Bible addresses, the descendants of Cush and the color of their skin, that is dark. Okay, so that'd be the E3V32. So those are the four descendants of Ham, which includes Canaan. And from Ham came the rest of these. I know that to be a fact because of the CY chromosome, which I understand to be the descendants of Nimrod. So the CY chromosome is descended, of course, from Cush. So we know that Cush came first and the CY chromosome came after. Same thing with the D Andamanese and the Tibetan Ds. and the Japanese Ds. They also came after E, even though they're listed before, like, the A and the B are alphabetically, supposedly before E. They didn't come before, they came from Kush. So there's a lot of things you can notice here and find that are in air. Well, I don't know if I've been speaking into the microphone, but anyways, here's maybe that's a little bit better. So maybe I should double check back here and see what's going on. If I can. Where am I? Yeah. Oh, anyways. See if everything's okay. Let me see. Apparently everything's okay. Let's see, here go. All right. So we'll go back here. We'll go back over here. And so, yeah, that would be the Hamitics. And I want to focus on the significance of the Semitics as far as it relates to Neanderthals as well, if I can, at some point. Because we know Europe and Asia is the Japhethites, and the Semitic populations also moved into Europe, which includes the G Assyrian Y chromosome, and of course the I2 and the I1 that moved up in these areas. So we just need to keep in mind that this is basically Japhetic, at least on the paternal side, not on the maternal side, which we can look at as well, but also that the Semitic, as it relates to Neanderthal, moved up into this area as well. So, of course, J1 is Arabic predominantly, and that is Semitic as well. So we can use that as a gauge as well as it relates to Neanderthals. But some interesting facts is that Greece or Anatolia or whatever, mostly this part of Greece and Europe, these are known as the original first Europeans. They were colonized or settled by Tiraz, which became the Thracians in history, and Javan, which became several of the sea people in the Mediterranean, and they became part of the Phoenicians as well, which were a mixed group that went all the way to America, I believe. But anyways, so then there is this Q. The Q, I believe, is the Medes, because there's an interesting thing that it says in the Bible that Madai, who is the progenitor of the Medes, asked Shem to marry his daughter. Now, this is going to be very significant. So Madai married a Semitic, female ancestor for the populations in wherever Madai went. So that's going to be important, and because they would remain separate from the rest of the other Semitic mitochondrial DNAs. But we're going to notice that there are two separate groups of Semitic mitochondrial DNAs as a result. And it probably wasn't just Madai that married the daughter of Shem. there was probably, maybe not immediately, but later on, there's probably other people that did too, as well, which we can also see, which is going to affect the European population dramatically. So, an interesting thing I noticed is that these original Greeks, which is the T and the L Y chromosome from Tiraz and Javan, were there at the time of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, of course, went conquering the world all over the place. And what do you know? Look what we have here. Look at this. Oh, look, an LY chromosome all the way in India. Oh, a TY chromosome all the way in India. To this day, the descendants of the Greeks from Alexander's campaign all the way to India, and if you know this, the history, Alexander apparently liked India and almost basically became Indian. He liked riding elephants and all that. It's an interesting history. And he was criticized for it and a whole bunch of stuff like that. But in his campaign going all the way to India, he brought the LY chromosome and the TY chromosome all the way to India, which remained there to this day. And of course, there's an R2 there as well, which he probably or may have brought as well. Okay, and so make sure we get this straight. You have the R1A is the descendants of Ashkenaz, which settled Germany. That's why the Ashkenazi Jews call themselves Ashkenazi, because of being in the area of the Ashkenaz, which are descendants of Japheth, which Ashkenaz is the son of Gomer, descendant of Japheth. So the R1A is Ashkenaz. The R1B is Ashkenaz brothers Riphath. And the R2, which is over here somewhere, well, they got the R1. This is R. Oh, that's the same one. Oh, they're just saying it goes. Well, okay. But anyways, there's an R2 as well, which is in this area. So it's kind of like a triangle, big triangle. You have Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarma. Togarma would be the R2, son of Gomer. Now, almost the same, well, belonging to the same tree, of course, is the Q, which I believe is the Medes, right? The Q. So the Medes, which I used to think it was K, but I'm thinking maybe K is the other son of Japheth, which would be Tubal, because I'm thinking Meshach would be the N, and Magog would be the O, and Tubal is the only one remaining that is kind of unidentified, so that would be probably the K, which of course his descendants also went all the way into this area of actually Australia, in this area here, which I believe the M and the S is probably related to the K as well. So that's a quick overview, unless I start talking about the Phoenicians who consisted of the R1B, the T, the E, and of course the J1, the J2, and the G, and the Q. So that's what the Phoenicians in history, the later Phoenicians, not the original descendants, are put, but the later so-called Phoenicians consisted of those groups, which I've already had other videos showing that they're all in America. That would be the G, the R1B, the Q. Of course, the Q went there the other way, but I believe it also came back this way. And the J, you have the J1, but interesting. You not only have the J1 in the Phoenicians, you have the J2, you have the I2, and you have the I1, which remember when the Phoenicians in the heyday, if you will, of King Solomon, the Phoenicians were allied with King Solomon, so that was before the breakup of Israel. So when Israel went to America by way of the Phoenicians, they were still all together, and I two is represented in America, and I1 is represented in America, which I've already demonstrated, already shown, which is very significant. And because I believe they were mining copper, gold, and silver and bringing it back to the temple, which is another thing that I guess they're keeping it under wraps, is that they've identified the location near the Dead Sea of where all the temple treasure is, and they're just deciding how they're going to dig it up, which will probably take a few years from now if they ever do it, if they ever get the permission to do it, and stuff like that. So, so this is probably a lot of information for skeptics, but I'll just keep going. Yeah, so we know about the C3 already, that went all the way to America, Central America, all the way into South America. The Waorani and the Quichuas and the Wayus all have this C3Y chromosome from Nimrod. So it was significant when when the Waorani Indians killed the 5 missionaries. It was like Nimrod against Abraham all over again, because if you consider Europeans as descendants of Abraham, which many of them are, so you have the same drama again. But in this case, the tribe, many in the tribe accepted the gospel. Their lives were changed. Their lives were transformed in such a way that the homicide rate within their tribe went from 60% down to 0 as a result of the interaction between Nimrod and Abraham. So, see what else we can find here. And of course, Nimrod's descent went all the way to Australia, all the way to the Pacific Ocean, but apparently never crossed over. If they did, they were probably killed, because apparently some of the mitochondrial maternal DNA did cross the Pacific, but there's no representatives of the C2 in America. So probably they didn't make it. They didn't survive, if they ever made it to America. So, because from appearances, it looks like the mitochondrial maternal DNA went across the Pacific and didn't take this route, because it doesn't seem to be that route that they took. But of course, again, the Olmec statues in Central America with a C3Y chromosome, and together with a Q, the statues have both Asian and African features if you look at them, and that always puzzled them, and there's always a big discussion as to whether or not Africans sailed to Central America or the Americas, and people are saying, no, that didn't happen. Well, the descendants of Nimrod clearly did make it. See, the Dene, they clearly crossed over there into America. And of course, the descendants of Nimrod, separate from the D2s, separate from, of course, the E3s and the A's and the B's. Because Nimrod was the king, of course, in Mesopotamia, which is the land of Shinar. Of course, there were they were mixing. They were mixed, but they still had their separate little tribes. So the what they call the House of Nimrod in history. There's an actual House of Nimrod that remained after Nimrod was killed, which would consist of a lot of his descendants. Since he was king of the whole world, he had many male descendants, and as you can see, they moved east instead of into Africa. And of course, with their genetic information, and it's all the way down here as well. And a lot of the between the Andamanese and the C5s and the C's, these C's over here and the C2s, they influence this population here. And sometimes I'll say that, well, a lot of Asians have African features, and people say, what? Asians have African? No, yeah. If you look closely and carefully, and especially, of course, especially in this area, a lot of Asians do have African features, including of course, in the Philippines they have the population called the Negritos or the Negritos, and as well, of course, as the Andamanese and the Australian Aborigines. So Asians clearly do have some of the Asians, and you can tell the difference just by looking at them as to whether or not they have African features or not. And of course, a lot of them do. As a matter of fact, a lot of the Indonesians, will look. Some of the Indonesians look like Obama, for that matter. Not to say, not to suggest anything, but um, that is one idea thrown around that he's an Indonesian, but that's neither here nor there. That's another can of worms. So here we go. We have the Assyrians, which is the GY chromosome, which today would be I guess they call them Romanis, or no, this is a separate population. The G is a Semitic population from Assyria. The H is the Elamites. They call them, see here, just so you know I'm not making things up, Elamo-Dravidian. Elamo-Dravidian. So these Dravidians with the HY chromosome, H of course is Semitic, L is Greek, we know that, but H of the Dravidians is Semitic, and that would be the descendants of Elam. So we have the Elamites, the Romanis or Gypsies, or however they're called, have the HY chromosome, which is, of course, is Semitic, and they're descendants of Elam, which was settled in this area here. And there's a known history of them moving into India as well. So that's where that came from. So that's part and parcel of the Semitic move that I wanted to talk about, that moved into Europe. It's not the whole thing, of course, but there is an influence. This G over here is also in Germany as well. It also moved up into Germany. But besides all that, like I said, the same way Madai asked to have the daughter of Shem for his wife, I'm sure many other of these descendants, some of these descendants did as well, because you can see the results in Europe. 95% of the European population has Semitic mitochondrial DNA. 95% is Semitic. And it's not just Semitic, it's, Judaic Semitic, or the same line as the Judaic branch Semitic, which we can get into as well. So, but I've spent a long time on this map, but that's just for the by way of introduction and review. So I'll try to, how do I, thing doesn't move. Well, I got to go back over here. Anyway, I'm just going through these here. This is the Y haplogroup again. Okay, so it's ABC. The sea, of course, you can see the descendants of Nimrod over here all the way into Americas. And of course, we know they reached all the way over here in the Waorani tribe and the Quechuas and the like. Now, and the DY chromosome would be this green color yellow, not to be confused with this R1, because the R1, remember who that is? That's Ashkenaz. R1 is Ashkenaz. So all this bright yellow is Ashkenaz here, but this, oh, that's bright yellow too. So this is the green yellow is the descendants of the Andamanese, descendants of Kush, of course. So the Andamanese and the Japanese, this green over here, or this yellow green over here, and the Tibetans and the Japanese, they both have the DY chromosome. And as much as that's a good third of the population in Japan has the DY chromosome, and especially in the north is predominantly the DY chromosome, of course, because that's where they were pushed. Actually, they were kind of pushed up north, and that's where they remained. So that's what happened there. And they got a D. Looks like you got a D here, a D here, and a D here. So and a D here. So yeah, these populations have D as well. And of course, the Andamanese, which is in this island off of in the Indian Ocean over here. So that's where that is, and that of course is Hamitic. So the C and the D, which would be this color here of C, and the D are Hamitic. Just to keep in mind, as well as the A and the B, and the E. See the E, you have the E, these E's here. These blues are E. And then you have, I guess, the subgroups of A and B, which would be this color and this color, the A and the B in Africa. And then interesting, of course, you got the R, which is they got it labeled separately, but they did a test on King Tut. They did a DNA test, the Y chromosome DNA test on King Tut, and it turned out that he was an R1b. He was an R1b descendant, so he wasn't descended from Mitzrayim. He wasn't descended from Put or Cush or anybody. He was descended from an R1b, which is Riphath, the son of Gomer. So they were surprised at those results, and it only got published when somebody in Europe, Sweden or Switzerland or somewhere obtained the results and ran it through the computer, and they figured out it was an R1b. That King Tut was an R1b. But anyways, moving on. We got here. Oh, this is the one. This is the one that compares it to Neanderthal and Denisovans. This is pretty interesting here, because as you know, Europeans and Asians have Neanderthal DNA, and this is showing you who has the most Neanderthal DNA and who has the Denisovan DNA. So this is going to be interesting, because remember what I said about the Semitic population. Remember what I said about the J1 population and the Africans. Of course, Africa, we already know, doesn't have much Neanderthal DNA by comparison. But interesting that the Semitic people don't either. And with the Semitic move into India with the the Dravidians, you can see this huge Dravidian signal right here from the Dravidian population, which is Elam, which is Semitic. And the other interesting thing here, it's clear as well, it's clear that there's also Semitic influence where the J2 is. Remember the J2? This area here is J2, which is Judaic. So you can see that's Semitic as well. This J2 population, this probably Medes or Madai or somebody. But anyways, this area here is also Semitic and also lacking Neanderthal DNA by comparison. And the interesting thing to me is when you follow the I2 and the I1, especially the I1. I2 is located in this area. It's not showing up well. I mean, somehow apparently they got some Neanderthal DNA from mixing in with Europeans there. But interestingly, the area of the I1, again, has less Neanderthal DNA. And of course in England, in this area here too. So the Vikings, when they invaded this area here, and the Anglo-Saxons, when they invaded England, they affected the English population as well, making it having less Neanderthal DNA. So the conclusion is that Neanderthals are the descendants of Japheth. So Japheth had, of course, his sons were Ashkenaz, Togarmah, Togarmah and Riphath. Riphath is R1b, Togarmah is over here. So, and the other Japhethites, of course, would be the N population up here, which would be Meshech, and the O population down here, which is Magog. And again, the N population and the O population, basically Japheth. You can see a strong resemblance to Neanderthals. And the Denisovan is just, I thought it originated over here somewhere, but actually originated in Papua New Guinea, or Papua, part of New Guinea. So that's just a descendant of, another descendant of Japheth, which is probably the K. But this is it'd be the M and the S. The M, Y chromosome and the S, which are probably related. They're both very similar, but they've been separated for like ages. And of course, in this area, would be of course, the influence of the M population in this area, which is also related to the K Y chromosome in this area. So a little bit more study on that would be interesting. So it turns out that this Denisovan population is all the way, actually separated from this other Asiatic population. It's actually quite separate. It's more in the darker skin population, actually, the Denisovan population, which I wasn't that aware of, but that's what it. The other thing is that this population here, I got to see what that is as well. That's to be Greenland and Iceland. But yeah, that's Japhetic, heavily Japhetic population. Now the question would be, well, why is this population so dark with Neanderthal DNA? Well, turns out the Q, remember the Q? The Q from the Medes, that's Japhetic too. So this Q population went all the way through. In fact, all of the Americas is the Q population, but and interesting interesting here. See this little yellow spot here? What's significant about this location? This is the location of the Olmecs. So you can see how the Nimrod's CY chromosome influenced the American population and this little area of the Olmec population and this area of the Waoranis. Waoranis are right here. I grew up right here. The Waoranis are right here. So you can see how the CY chromosome affected the population in this area as it relates to Neanderthals. And the rest of this, of course, is Q. So since the rest of it's Q, the rest of it's Japhethite, so that sustains the evidence that Neanderthals were Japhethite. So moving right along. Well, I'm still going to try to get to the mitochondrial because, of course, this is the Y chromosome. We have the E's here. They don't have the E3s. If they have the E3s, it would be before the C and the D and the A and the B. So the E3 is conspicuously missing out from this chart. As I've said before, the Semitic populations that are not Judaic and Arabic are the G, which is the Assyrian. You have the F2, which is the Lydians, descendants of Lud, they're Semitic. And you have the F1 population, which is the Arameans, which is the Syrians today. So this is the Assyrians from Ashur, and this is the Syrian population, which is the Arameans of ancient times. And then you have the H, of course, which is the Dravidian Elamites. And there you have the Semitic populations in the world, as well as the J population, the J1, J2, and the I1 and I2. Remember when with the time of the Phoenician signature has the I1 and I2, as well as the J1 and the J2, because Israel had not yet separated from Judah in the days of King Solomon and in the days of the Phoenicians. So that's why you have the I1 and the I2, both of them in America, which is, to me, very significant. Just another thing. OY chromosome is the largest population in the world. NY chromosome, I believe, is Meshech. T, of course, is this Greek, the Javan population. And the other L is the Thracians. Now, this is the only one I really don't have a lot of information. I believe the M and the S are descended from K, which I believe is Tubal. This Q population, I believe, is Madai. I believe these are the three sons of Gomer. This Q population is the descendants of Madai, which of course goes all the way into America, and I believe comes back through the Mediterranean to the Mediterranean again. So, I mean, from America. In other words, they went all the way around to America and came back by way of Phoenicians into the Mediterranean, into the area from America, which I believe I saw something about that, but I have to verify that if I was just dreaming or what, you know. But anyway, we'll just go ahead and move right along here. Simmons Genome Project. What happened here? Oh, okay. The Thousands Genome Program. People ask me where did I get my information from, whether it's peer reviewed, all that. This is the Simmons Genome Project. You know, this is all this information is coming out from peer studies anyways. So, of course, this is the mitochondrial now. Now we're going to go into the mitochondrial, hopefully, and stay there for a while. So, you notice how you have three separate trees. You have this M group, which is, you know, a little bit confusing, but it's an M group, the N group, which is not making any sense here, but you have two different groups here. And within this N group, remember I said there's two Semitic groups, which we're going to look at in detail as well. So we have the African L1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, apparently. Yeah. So, but they remained exclusively in Africa for all intents and purposes. As far as we can tell, they never left Africa. So the Hamitic mitochondrial DNA went to Africa, stayed there, and never left until recently, you know, until recent times, or, you know, whatever, you know. They went into Europe as well, but it's like maybe in some places there might be 3 or 4% of this L in Europe, in the southern locations. So that's why I said that the 95% of the Europeans are mitochondrially Semitic. That's because 3 or 4% of the population is L. Less than 1% is Asiatic, which is what I have to show and demonstrate. Well, I've already shown it anyways. But or Asiatic, yeah, less than this is Asiatic. Less than 1% is any one of these, and there's a couple more, but there's less than 1% is any one of these here in Europe, which is to me very, striking. Because you do have the thing where they say, well, you're not Jewish unless you have the maternal side, unless you have a Jewish mother. And it turns out that 95% of Europe is mitochondrially Semitic, and actually the Judaic type of Semitic DNA, as opposed to the Asiatic um, Semitic DNA, which I want to get into, hopefully. So, this is the Y haplogroup. We already went through that, right? So, okay. Okay, again, this is the same chart, just showing the difference here. Remember, so this is M, and all of this is N, but then you have a subgroup here, which is R, which is more the Judaic Semitic is more of this, the HVs and Rs and Fs and Us and Js and Ts. And this B, I think it somehow skipped out. It jumped it jumped from over here, went all the way to America. So the A and the B is in America. And these are more Asiatic Semitics. But in order to demonstrate that, let's see what I can do here. So this is the claim, of course. Now I want you to notice something. You have 3 groups here, but what's missing here? Well, they show this. Supposedly the origin is here, but this is the L's. The L's are missing out of this chart. So let's look at this a little bit here. We have the N group. Remember I said, and of course in India, once you get to India, you have the more Asiatic mitochondrial DNA, or the Japhethite mitochondrial DNA. So the M's are all Asiatic in mitochondria. Except, of course, there's mixing. They got mixing here, but that's another story. So this is M, predominantly, or at least half, up to half or more than 0.5%. Once you get past India, here is mitochondrially Japhethite maternal DNA. But then you have, of course, you have the M, and then you have N again. So remember N? N is supposed to be from over here. How did it get over here? And of course, you got the A and the B, which is not Japhethite, which is not Asian, it's Semitic, which is what I have to show in the subsequent illustrations. So here again, you have the L supposedly went, well, which it never did. The L never left, which is another thing. The L never left Africa, and they show it leaving Africa. They say, oh, it became an M and an N or whatever. That's what their belief is. But no, these are separate trees. And if you go back to the Simmons Genome Project, you can see they're all separate trees. See, the origin is here with space here. Remember, this is mitochondrial DNA, so there's going to be a space between each of the women, of the wives of the sons of Noah. So you can expect to have, and if there's no space here, then you're going to have to say, well, these 2 women were sisters or something. But according to this, none of them were sisters. They all have space between them. So this L population is one tree, totally separate from the M population, totally separate from the N population. Okay, very important. So when they make this claim here, the L turned into this. No, no, totally false. These are three separate trees. The L is one tree which never left Africa. The M is another tree, which is the Japhetic, which is only found past India anyway. And the N population of the maternal DNA is Semitic. Okay, we'll go to another illustration here. Okay, this one is a little bit confusing, but they're trying to separate it. You got the L's African, then you got East Asians with a GZ, FG. I don't think these are all. And then they call this Euro-Indian, which is not. This is Semitic. It's not in Euro or Indian. It's neither Euro nor Indian. It's Semitic. Okay, then you got the M. Well, here you go. The M is Asian. See, the M is Asian, which the C, the D, the G, the E, or what F or whatever. Some of these are Asian as well, which we'll be able to see because here they're all mixed up. They got A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I. That's all. It's in alphabetical order, but it's all mixed up. It's no relationship to what things actually are, because you got the D. For example, they started in South America. The mitochondrial DNA is labeled A, B, C, D. The A and the B is Semitic. The C and D is Asian or Japhetic. And they just label them one after the other because they assumed they were all the same thing, right? So they just started labeling A, B, C, D, E, or F, G, H, I. I guess they skipped the E. H, I, J, K, L. Then you got the M, N, R, whatever. But when they went to go figure out where things are placed, they found out, well, it's a little different story. This is where things are found, which, is not as related to where, okay, not as much. Okay, this one's a little bit better. This one's a little bit clearer. Of course, you have the L, which is Africa. You have the M, which is the Asiatic. Remember, because this is M. Now, these are all M's here. All these are M's, so they're all M. These are all Asiatic. So this color here is Asiatic. And look what they're trying to say. They're trying to say M1 is African. Which is not making sense, but anyways, somehow but anyways, these are all Asiatic. These are all M's because this is a separate tree from this. This is one tree. This is a separate tree, and this is the other separate tree. And to keep in mind, this isn't all of them, but the C, Z, G, E, and D, which is the C and the D. Remember the C and D? That's Asiatic. That's M. So these are the only. So when you look in the European mitochondrial DNA, you're not going to see any of these. You're not going to see the M. I mean, of course, very slightly if it's there. Like I said, 1%. You won't see large significant populations of the M, the C, the Z, the E, the G, the D in Europe. They just aren't there, or the M. Non-existent in Europe. Okay, what you will see is the Semitic population. Remember, the Semitic population is divided in two. So you have the A is in South America, and the B is in South America. Remember, I said the B, they must have migrated from somehow they migrated from the Middle East and went all the way to through Asia all the way to America. So this B belongs to the Semitic, the more Semitic line of mitochondrial DNA, and this would be the Asiatic Semitic population, if there is such a thing. It's what I call the Semitic population in Asia, or the Semitic mitochondrial DNA in Asia is the A and the O and the S and the X. So the X, which is also in places, is from the Asiatic Semitic population, as we'll see. So remember how much influence that the Semitic population had in Europe, and how much the C population, I mean the Asiatic population, I mean the descendants of Nimrod had on the Americas as it relates to Neanderthals, as it relates to Japethite DNA. But anyways, we can move on, I think. This is going back to the same one. Okay, now this, if you look here, this is all Semitic. Now they're talking Mesolithic, Neolithic, Cahotholic. These are different periods in time. I guess this is being the oldest, this is the next oldest, this whatever. But it's really development of the same mitochondrial DNA. So this is more the original, the U's, the purples, and the browns are all U's, right? So this is more the original mitochondrial DNA, and this is more the later subdivisions of mitochondrial DNA, which would be the H and the K, which is the green, and the X, which is here. So they're just basically subdivision in the modern, what it is today. So there's basically subdivisions of the original mitochondrial DNA. That's all that means. Like my interpolation. Again, this is their claim of the mitochondrial leaving Africa. Let's see how well they do this here. We have, okay, the A and the B. This chart doesn't show very well, but they go all the way to America. But remember, let me see, let me find another chart. Somehow I'm not getting this correct. Or am I going up here? Okay, let me try this again. Okay, is this. I know I had some other one, I just uploaded them. What I'm looking for. Wow. Okay, yeah, it's here. Let me see if we can find it. Yeah, this one here. So now remember that these claims, which is the next one after this, these claims here are not true. Either they're being lazy, they're being negligent, or intentionally misleading. But notice what they have here. And all the maps are like this. All the maps are like, of course, the claim is you have the L. Wow, here they go to the N instead of the M. See that inconsistency? They don't even know which one they want to take it to. So the L went here, and then you have this is the N's, remember, are the Semitic mitochondrial DNA. But the X is actually from the Asiatic Semitic line. Well, so that's wrong. Or is it? But anyways, I'll double check on that. But anyways, the thing we have wrong here is the B. So you have it going the M to the M and the B, right? So apparently the B came from the M, but that's not true. Remember, the B is Semitic. The B does not belong to the M family tree. And the same thing goes with the A. They got the A going all the way to America here, the A all the way into South America. They have it coming off of M. It doesn't come off M. That's a misrepresentation. That's not true. The A and the B are from the Semitic population. Okay? So they're misrepresenting here. You have to call them out for being wrong, but we don't know what the intentions are. They're probably just haphazard, reckless, and not paying attention or not thinking about it, what's going on, not even looking at the charts, the way things are connected. Of course, these are all probably just copied after each other. They're probably just copying each other. Okay. So where are we going here? Why is it doing this? Oh, anyway. Okay, this is the same thing. You have the A coming off the M. So they're probably just copying each other, This is family tree, too. They should know better. What's wrong with family tree DNA? Making a chart like this. They're not paying attention. Okay, so are we doing this again? We're going to have to refresh every time, I guess. So, yeah. So here we get a clear idea. This is the order, as you were, except for the fact that they're separate trees. We already know they're separate from each other because there's distance between this one and this one. This sister and this, they're not sisters. This maternal line is not the same as this maternal line, is not the same as this maternal line. They connect back to Eve somewhere. So there's distance between this, and there's distance between this and this. So we have the L, the M, remember, is the C, Z, D, G, E, and Q. Then the N is a separate line, which is all the rest, which is the rest of the population. Maternal mtDNA populations in the world. Okay. So we have a separation here. These would be the Asiatics, right? These are found more in Asia. The N, the I, the W, the X. So the X is Asiatic, Semitic. It's Semitics that were more from Asia than from the Middle East, or they went to Asia rather than staying in the Middle East. So they have a separate line. Then we have, this would be the more Judaic population, or the more Middle Eastern Semitic populations would be these. So this would be the rest of them. But these are all Semitic populations. These are all the same family tree as we already showed in the 1000 Genome Project. Okay, so some more work than what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, so this is the H haplogroup. The H haplogroup is the most common haplogroup, mitochondrial haplogroup in the world, which is Semitic, which is what a lot of Jewish populations consist of, is the Semitic H and K and B. But anyways, this is dividing up the H into the different groups. So I guess the only reason for me showing this is that fact that H is divided up in different groups, and this is me. I'm an H3G. That's what I am. So I'm an H. But a lot of Europe is the same thing anyway. Okay. So and I guess this is the this is in Ireland. The mitochondrial DNA in Ireland. And we can see the K, we can see the J, the H, the I, HV, the V, the W, the X, which is Asiatic Semitic. Well, are the Semitics from Asia? Or, you know what I'm saying? This is also found in America as well. But the W, okay, A, B, C, D. What's this A, B, C, D? Oh, the A and the B and the C and the D. Oh, basically, yeah, 0%, because this is mitochondrial DNA. The ABCD is mitochondrial DNA found in South America, and I guess America too. So they're not going to be found in Ireland. But notice there's no mitochondrial. There's not even the L here. Where's the L? Oh, there is an L. There's an L. Oh, here we go. We have an R over here, and N, or N is, we know what N is. This is all N, or mostly. But we do have an L. We have a 1% L in Ireland. There we go. So we do have the African mitochondrial DNA in Ireland. We got 1% is L. But where's the Asiatic? Where's the Japhethite mitochondrial DNA? We have WV, we have R, WV. Of course, X is not, so, and this isn't either. But let me just double check. WVR. See what we're going here. Where's the WVR? WVR. They're all Semitic. There's not even a speck of Japhethite maternal DNA in Ireland. Not even a speck. Okay. And there's 1% African. So that's just by way, just to give you an idea of what that's how significant that is. Okay, so this X actually came from this area and went to this area and America as well. And the A and the B are Semitic, C and D is Japhetic. They have this all wrong. They should be ashamed of themselves making a map like this. But anyway, there are some more significant illustrations, but I guess I don't have them here. So this one, yeah, but that's just a general idea, I guess. I suppose that's about it. I don't know how my stream's going, if it's still up. I have no idea. Actually, they're here somewhere, right? What's this? Oh, is this them? Yeah, I think this is them. This one, this one. Nah. But anyways, there's another mitochondrial DNA map which I've shown before, which clearly shows the amount of Semitic DNA is in Europe. This is harder to see, but you can still see it. This blue, for example, is the age. You have the HV. The K is this color here, which is all through Europe. And of course, I've shown before that they're also in the Judaic populations as well. significant numbers of K, H, and V's, and so it's basically the same thing. Well, the European mtDNA is basically the same thing as Judaic mtDNA. I've shown that before. So, and there's still, of course, there's still probably some more uh, images to review, but for right now, oh, I have to take these all down. How about that? There we go. And of course, this is basic here. This is one of the most basic charts of Y chromosome, which is not mtDNA, but this is worth your study here. And of course, it's not the entire population is not R1b. The entire population is not I1. The entire population is not E3. That's not the point. The point is that these are areas where these significant populations are found. And if you'll see here, from actually Italy all the way to Iran is like 50% Judaic, not even J1 Arabic, but Judaic. So when Dr. Jensen says that the Jews came from Turkey, that's why he's saying that, but it's not that the Jews came from Turkey, it's that the Jews were driven out the land into these areas where they remain to this day. So that half the population, half of the Persian population in Iran is Judaic. I mean Judaic. And not to mention even any of the others. And that's, but that's because when the Israel was lost, the lost tribes of Israel, they were driven up in this area. But they just kept on moving. Of course, they kept on moving up into this area, as you can see. And of course, but the same thing that happened to Israel happened to Judaics too, the Judah too. Judah was also driven up into this area as well. That's why you have these huge populations of J2, is because they're Judaic, descendants of Abraham, Judaic, which is the reason why we need to get the gospel into these areas, because they're descendants of Abraham. And I mean, we're not talking small population. We're talking significant. Over half the population is some kind of J2 or J1 or I2 or whatever. It's like, huge populations. They're all descended from Abraham. Of course, remember I was showing the effect of this population here on the Neanderthal DNA influence, that there's less Neanderthal DNA influence in these areas, as well as England, from the Vikings and Anglo-Saxons invading England, proving that the Neanderthals were Japhethite, or because they were Japhethite, as well as the Denisovans are basically this population here, which spread into this population, which would be the Denisovans, which are also Japhethite. So when they say that Denisovans and Neanderthals are also related to each other, that's because they're all Japhethites. It's not complicated. Okay. Now, let's see. Okay. All right. I'm glad for everybody participating in my boring lecture. Hopefully they are smart enough. We can hear you. There's a bit of a whistle or something. Yeah, I'll have to check that out later. And looks like I lost all my audience, but that doesn't matter. It's okay. At least I'm enjoying it, right? So that's that, and be sure to check out the most recent upload of James Tour, which is in the description. Included it in the description for when this gets older and nobody knows what the most recent upload of James Tour is. So, all right, okay, there we go. I guess that's about it. I guess I beleaguered this enough, long enough. So, God bless everybody. Everybody take care. And the Bible is absolutely true. The table of nations are absolutely true. Everybody can be traced to their original grandson and great grandson of Noah. It's a fact of science.